Listen, guys, thank you so much for joining the Majorvation Podcast, where we talk about all things inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. Today, we have another successful, amazing story from a young man by the name of Raphael. He is doing a lot of great things. I consider him a powerhouse entrepreneur, a franchise consultant with an impressive track record, over 48 units under his belt, and over 37 million in sales as a strategic partner with the UPS store and leader in franchisor partnerships, boasting in over 700 connections. Raphael is defining access and opportunity for aspiring business owners. His mission, matching people to the right franchise systems and helping them execute with excellence through content, coaching, and consulting. Raphael empowers others to unlock generational wealth through ownership, process, and informed decision making. Raphael, welcome to the Majorvation Podcast, brother.
Man, thank you for having me, Major. I appreciate the in-depth bio and breakdown. And I'm glad to be here, man. Thanks for inviting me out.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned before we begin, I look at this as a mini class, man. Some of the things that you're doing, the things I've been talking about for quite some time in my own way, sharing certain information to just familiarize our community, just everyone in general, but specifically our community about the power of knowledge, the power of business and communication, and the importance of collaboration. And today I just want to get you on board to kind of unpack some of those things so people can kind of hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Obviously,
Yeah,
when
definitely.
people hear your background and just from the bio in itself, it's going to intrigue a lot of people. So I would say, first off, what is your mindset before? What was your mindset before your first franchise, and how has that evolved with each new acquisition thus far?
Got it, man. Before entering the franchise space, I was always that elite hustler, man. I came from the car sales game, where I was, running the auctions, buying cars at low price points, fixing them up, and selling them, and that grew, out of control. But it was really seasonal, to be realistic, man. Especially once I moved out to the IE, when I moved out to Fontana, I had my family was growing. I'm in a new terrain. I'm originally from LA. And I just needed to get a little bit more structure with what I was doing. The mindset then was, kind of living by the day, make a dollar today and, we hustle it and enjoy it on the weekend, and then we'll make it back the next day. I could tell you right now that mindset has definitely shifted, brother. We're creating a generational now. We're going long term. But before that, it wasn't as structured. I will tell you that my mindset was not as structured. Now, for us to even get this on calendar, we had to really work through, because everything is structured for optimization and full efficiency. I have three children, a wife, and I've done some great things, and I've also learned a lot of great lessons. So from coming from my mindset being that back then to now saying, hey, everything we're doing is going long. And with having this renewed mindset, I'm able to see certain results. And those certain results, man, aren't really tapped into by our people. So I began the journey of saying, you know what, I have this knowledge, I have this experience, which trumps all. The goal is to create, hundreds of thousands of franchisees just like me and break them into a space of business that isn't tapped in by our people. And it's honestly an easy barrier of entry, but it's just so high level. It takes a certain mindset that all it needs is coaching and hand holding to get them there. But once our people can get there, I'm sure this can be one, legacy sector of business that would be ours. I commented on a post the other day where it was a black woman saying, she went to a meeting, and lots of different races were there, and they all had their niche of business that culturally they lean in toward. It's kind of, for example, if I was to bring up 7-Eleven to you, You go in there, there's a certain type of person typically that is running a 7-Eleven.
So what'd you think?
Yeah, man, if I try the white ones?
No problem.
A new shoe with the same old soul. Superstar fella from Adidas.
That was one person that broke the barrier, entered into that space, and held the door open for their people to flood in. I see it all day, every day. And I just know that this is something that our people need, that our people can create generationally, leveraging these huge, massive global brands. And therefore, man, really changing our communities wealth-wise, man. So that's my mindset as of now. Totally different from the past. It was a little bit more selfish back then. It was a little bit more lower level, like I was saying. But the goal now is to spread this mindset, and that's what I start off with every client. Make sure we get that mindset right.
Yeah, mindset is extremely important. And I think, your story mirrors a lot of people, including myself back in the past. Me being close to 50 now, I have those very same stories. Just today, I made a post about over 16 years ago. I started a clothing brand called Lord Major Apparel. But at the time, I was still focused on doing music and I was on the scene from that perspective.
Yeah.
And I made $1 million, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how I made $1 million. There was no systems in place. I couldn't tell you where the money went, right? It was just so crazy. So when you say that, I know exactly that mentality that lacks structure. And one of the things that I've been working to do and trying to figure out how to message appropriately is how do we make systems and structure cool so it's a natural habit, right?
Yeah.
And the best way to teach it that I found out is to be it, right? And the things that you're doing, you actually can speak about it from an authority perspective. But more importantly, it's not like bullet points. You can tell a story that navigates your growth over time, which makes you that much more relatable. So that's why I appreciate hearing your story and hearing it in the way that you that expressed it, man. So thank you for that.
No, definitely, man. And you hit a few key pointers, man. The goal is to make this look cool, Major. Franchising, the word itself is extremely intimidating, extremely high level, where people don't even want to think deep into it. When you think franchises, a lot of people are hearing big sports teams and the Chick-fil-A's and these massive corporations that they would never imagine being able to touch. But I'm able to break franchising down to a molecular level. And yes, it's being put into action on my end. So that story is way more relatable and believable because I've been there, done that. And I'm making it look cool because I am relatable. And I'm always going to make this content look cool. I'm going to make the process even cooler because that's a way for me to tap into the community. They would love that. They can relate to that more. And it encourages them to hop into the field alongside with me. The lack of a mindset is real key, Major. I know we're having a, sitting on the couch, conversation here. And I've realized that the lack of structure, the lack of, high level thinking is really the catalyst to a lot of the problems that we have going on. And really the catalyst or the non-catalyst of having people in this space. I can tell you, man, the lack of structure on my end did put me under a lot of pressure, especially pandemic days. I was fresh into my first franchises with Subway. And I told you that my mindset shifted once I got into franchising, but there was still a shift of going from one unit, 5, 6 employees to multiple units, multiple locations, and 20, 25 employees. There had to be a shift in mindset. And I'll be one to be honest, because that's what makes me more likable and trustable. I didn't have that full mindset there. I was not operating like a lot of my counterparts were operating, knowing what the responsibility they had under their belt and moving accordingly. The lack of structure had me moving a little bit more immaturely. I mean, I have millions of dollars at my disposal that I'm under control of, and I'm still treating it like a hustle, So that's one of the things that I really get on my clients and really instill in my clients is we're taking this past the hustle. You realize you had a clothing line, no systems, you don't know how the money came, where it went. It was more sort of a hustle, per se. We want to take these things to legacy businesses and create legacy and generational wealth. So you hit the nail on the head. The goal is to make this look cool. Podcast is such where it's casual conversation. It's not corporatized per se. So that way, when our people hear this and see this, they'll know saying, whoa, if he did it, he was able to break it down to him on his podcast. I can do the same thing. And that's the goal of all of this, to be realistic.
No, absolutely. So from an example standpoint, is there any particular systems that you use that you can identify? Because sometimes when people hear structure, right, it's like, okay, great, I hear structure, but what does that look like? And you mentioned like even to get to this point, there was a structure in place. But for me, when I hear structure from my mentors and the things that I use, it's more so about the system that I use that makes me more efficient. And so whether that's my calendar, whether that's having an executive producer or delegating certain tasks, what has that evolution been like for you? And what are some of the things that you could say has been a benefit by having not only structure, but using certain systems that, and some may be automated?
I can give you multiple examples, but the main example I would tell you is the system of franchising itself. Now, let me break that down a little bit more granular. That's the purpose of a franchise, is to provide you a turnkey, proven system, proven marketing, proven branding, that all you need to do is go in, slide right in, information, and execute, and all systems come with that. I would say that I wasn't really in that following the franchisor's model of what it took to bring in the revenue and also what it took to maintain revenue and honestly power through the toughest times. A lot of Subways suffered during the pandemic. A lot of them got wiped out. A lot of my counterparts, my colleagues that I went to franchisee training with in Milford, Connecticut, got wiped out the first week of the pandemic.
Wow.
These were the big boys in class that that were owning the locations in the malls, the universities. We're talking about we're operating $500,000 franchises. These guys hopped in the game first week. Had 1.5 million on schedule. They really had units that were out of this world. But when the pandemic came, they were the first to be hit. The malls were the first to shut down. The universities were the first to close. The downtown areas with the heavy foot traffic, congestion that brought you in a lot of traffic and revenue were desolate. And therefore, they took a major hit. And again, my lessons that I learned during that period when I was going through my struggles as well, trying to maintain staff, trying to go across multiple units, opening one, closing the other, staff at home, playing video games or sick due to COVID. I had to really follow a franchisor's model that they've created to get through tough economic times. Subway made it through the '08 recession. Subway thrived heavily early 2000s with their $5 footlong. They've created a model that, and systems that can get you through this. However, I was probably a little bit too creative on my end and trying things outside of the system that weren't, textbook in the dictionary for this model, and therefore I took certain hits. So, as far as systems that I use, I would say following the franchisor's system to the T. There's no need in reinventing the wheel, Major. A good year started it off. Michelin, all these other brands just come in, make rubber wheels. It gets you from point A to point B. With this franchise game, let's not treat it like, it is a game. Let's treat it like it's supposed to be treated based on the systems that have taken these brands through multiple decades. UPS store has been around for more than 4 decades. Subway's been around for almost 6 decades now. They don't get there by accident. So following the franchise systems first and foremost. Second, Yes, getting on my calendar. I was really winging everything, and winging everything with a non-delegation eventually was going to come to an apex where everything would just crash down at a certain point. And that's kind of where my mindset was: the lack of really staying on top of my calendar, the lack of assistance, the lack of having my wife run admin for our parent company, the lack of that were systems that I didn't have in place that would keep me stable and help me with growth. And so I had to learn from that. That's the beauty that a lot of our people, my clients, get, is that I learned. I know what systems need to be in place, especially on the franchisor's end. Comes with lots of different tools, lots of proprietary softwares, um, lots of, just lots of QRGs, quick reference guides, things of that sort. That's the space that I'm in, that I'm really niche down in. And those are the systems that on a daily basis I have in correlation with each other to make sure operations are running smoothly. On a personal end, yeah, calendar. I gotta schedule in my kids' games. I had to schedule in date night with my wife. I had to schedule in meetings with potential clients. I had to schedule in visits at my locations to make sure operations are rolling smooth. So I would say that my calendar and being on top of it, delegating correctly, using tools like Calendly, using VAs, using Upwork, Fiverr, and just having using their systems to delegate some of the everyday tasks that I really shouldn't be worried about. I should be thinking high level. Those were the systems that I would say on a daily basis help me thrive, and give me a forecast of growth.
One real quick, I wanted to just share the amazing work that the Majorvation Podcast is doing. We're already getting so many great testimonials because of the guests that we've had on and the stories that they've shared and their actual testimonies about their success and their journey. And that journey and their successes are helping other people fulfill their missions in life. And that's super important. And that's the point and purpose of the Majorvation Podcast. We talk about all things inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. And now we are expanding our reach and saying, hey, if you have a personal brand, if you have a business, if you have a service, and you would like to advertise on the Majorvation Podcast, feel free to reach out to us at the Majorvation Podcast at gmail.com, or send me a DM or jump in the comments and we will follow back up with you. We have pre-roll, we have post-roll, we have also sponsored advertisements that are available slots for you. And this is the early bird because we're still growing, and let's grow together. So reach out to us now, get your opportunity to be seen by so many people with so many influential speakers on this podcast. No, that's amazing. And, I'm glad that you mentioned, your wife, kind of walked me back, like in the beginnings, even the ups and downs and the highs and lows. And I saw like a brief post that kind of, hinted at, through the ups and downs, like how important is it? I've been with my wife 25 years. So she understands, and I'm sure you guys get it also, how important is it to have like the right partner when you're building something like this and you're expanding and you're growing, and they're kind of right there with you, willing to do it at the same time, right?
Right, man. Man, bro, first and foremost, Major, I've been with my wife for 20 years, and we've been married for 12. And, I would say that was my biggest cheat code to success in this game. And I would also say that the lack of maximizing, the lack of wisdom and discernment, knowing that that's a cheat code over there, cost me dearly. Yes, sir. And this isn't something where I'm saying certain things to boost her up and feed her ego, things of that sort. This is a realistic conversation, man to man. With wives that we've been with for over a decade, 2 decades. It was really key. It was really key to have that partner there with me, especially during the tough, tumultuous times. The pandemic is probably my toughest period in business ever. Within all the different ventures that I've been in, and I was really structured separate from my wife. She works. She has a 9 to 5, and the way that I had things structured is this corporation, these franchises that I'm operating, things of that sort, that's all on me. No need for you to worry about that. And your job, your 9 to 5 is all you need to worry about. And we're good. We're really separated in tasks. We weren't in synergy. We weren't in unison per se. But I can tell you that once the tough times came and I was coming home beat up by the world, oh man, we definitely merged those rules. She was patting my head. She was also letting me know, saying, "Hey, next time before you make decisions as such, you got to let me know," things of that sort. And I mean, it's something about having a wife tapped in on a decision that truly works, man. A lot of decisions now, Major, that I'm making within business, I'm definitely consulting with her because I know the lessons I learned by non-consulting with her and me going through those tough times. She was there for me. She was there with me. But I can't risk that happening again. So having that significant other before you get on your trajectory is probably the most ultimate key, man. I have a lot of friends that, we've been on these journeys together and, they're moving up the ladder and acquiring wealth and things of that sort. And they've done it on a single tip. But now at this level, they're side-eyeing every interest that comes their way. Is it because I got this? Is it because I built this? Whereas I don't have that worry. I get an idea of building something great. I know that my wife was with me for things other than that because she was there with me before that. So before the multiple franchises, before the 5 cars a day sales game, before any of that, my wife was there with me, splitting Subway footlongs in 4 ways, so we can both have one for breakfast and lunch. She was with me sleeping on my sister's couch when my mom first moved out of LA, and I wanted to stay here to be with her. And I didn't have an apartment. I wasn't settled within anything. I was still going to school, and she went through those tough times with me. So ultimately, Key, I'm always going to be appreciative. She goes harder than a lot of my male counterparts and colleagues. She'll go down to LA and work a full shift, come home, make dinner while I'm on podcasts and such and creating content, and come home and everything's in order, man. So it's a big blessing. I'm definitely appreciative. And for anyone listening in, if you have that significant other that's there for you and they've proven it to you now, man, take advantage of it now versus later when you've already made it, because the goal is for you to make it. And now you have to look back and say, man, I lost something else is good. And, money isn't everything. Money can't fulfill certain things that having that significant other on your side can do.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. Yeah. And you use something that I use often in regards to how I reference my wife as a cheat code. Yep. Just that discernment, which, just knowing my temperament, because, I come from, very aggressive, a very aggressive environment. And I had to mature, into this professional role, into this public figure role, into this business entrepreneur role. Yeah. And it just gives you that longevity at the end of the day. But what would be some advice that you would give, or what would be some things that would be unexpected that would happen to someone coming into a franchise beyond like, a pandemic or something like that? What are some of the things that misconceptions about franchises beyond it may be hard to get into?
Beyond it may be hard to get into. First off, you always have to be prepared. That all goes in your pre-preparation, though, making sure you're choosing a brand that is technically recession-proof. So I know we talked about pandemic. Beyond that, economic downturns are something you really have to be aware of. Even beyond the economic downturns, Major, like I have a UPS store location I consult in Little Tokyo. We never envisioned anti-ICE protests being in front of that location and killing 2 weeks worth of revenue. Very detrimental. So again, this goes back to following franchisor systems. We followed those systems and we were able to get through. We're back operating, no problem at all. But I think a lot of some pitfalls that you may fall into in the very beginning. One of them I would say is is your acquisition of staff and your whole HR process. In my game, I'm really employee heavy. Whether it's at Subway, whether it's at a UPS store, honestly, most franchises that you're getting into, you're gonna have to have staff, or you're managing an actual staff to manage to operate the actual franchise itself. I hit those pitfalls by one, not having my acquisition process on point. No profiles on Indeed, LinkedIn, trying to hire solid talent versus just me doing winging it when people come in, ask for a job. Honestly, most times every time someone will come in, ask for a job, I'm giving it to them because at least I got a lead that came in. I didn't have to go search for it and take my energy off operations to go and handle that. So before even getting in, make sure you have your hiring and firing process in place. To double down on that, I was advised from training. This is from the franchisor in training saying, hey, you're buying an existing location. Once you get in there, fire the entire staff. And I was kind of like, whoa, yeah. I was kind of like, whoa, what do you mean go in and fire staff? I grew up in the hood. I didn't grow up with the silver spoon in my mouth. I know how it is I know what it feels like, to experience impoverishment and to not have it all. You mean to tell me that people I don't even know, I'm going to go pull the spoon out of their mouth, on day one? It was really hard for me to digest that. And honestly, I didn't execute on that. That hurt me a lot in the beginning. Those old staff knew that I wasn't truly tapped in on operations. It's only day one, day two. I'm not knowing the ins and outs. So they learned ways of embezzling cash and stealing hours from me and horrible customer service, but I was at their mercy because I didn't have that HR process to bring in someone new to replace. So they took advantage of that. And if you go too long in that cycle, enough theft, theft of payroll, enough theft of product, bad customer service, yeah, these people are actually running your business down into the ground. So that would be one. Getting into franchising, you're dealing with staff, make sure you have your HR process on point. If you're going into existing units and the existing unit was already doing bad to begin with, you may want to consider coming in with the brand new staff. It's a sacrifice, Major. You may, if you know your close date and closing escrow on June 30th on Monday, I probably wouldn't have started hiring my staff 2 weeks prior, 3 weeks prior. That may cause me not to pay them a free payroll, but coming from someone that's been there, done that with years of experience, that's way more worth it versus you going in without that, trying to think you're saving a few dimes and you lose thousands in the process. So
Yeah, no,
I would say, yeah, that HR process is key.
I'm very familiar with that, more so now than I was, in the future. But this kind of like brings and sheds more light on it because I'm actually in the process of acquiring, a sports lounge.
Okay.
And I think it's the same sentiment. I've went for the last couple of weeks, and I've watched the staff. They don't know who I am, right?
Okay, got you.
Yep. And I got a good feel of everything, and I'm just like, wow. I told my wife, I said, I'm gonna have to fire everybody here.
Yep.
And that was like a real reality because I seen the temperament as it is, but I can only imagine with me being like the new face and the new person coming in, they're going to have a leg up on me in certain areas where they're going to be able to take advantage of me. So I think that's a great bit of advice for anyone that's coming on board. Although we both grew up probably similar, impoverished, ghetto communities. So we have a certain empathy towards that type of action, right? Because we know how detrimental it was for us if that would have happened to our mom, to our dad or sister, cousin, or whatever. So it's business, right? It's the evolution of it, and it's a long game at the end of the day, man. So thank you for sharing that perspective because I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily get that if it wasn't really kind of explained in full context the way that you just explained that. So the importance of one thing that I really pride myself is in your relationships, the partnerships, and also just your character. You know, what people say about your reputation, and also leadership. How important has that been for you in regards to who you've connected with to kind of help bridge the gap on information, who you've connected with that's kind of bridged the gap on opportunities? How has that process been, and has there been a situation where you likely had an opportunity but you wasn't quite ready yet?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, man. You know, maintaining. I think I now say maintaining my brand because I've gone so deep with my brand. But prior to that is, you know, for us that grew up in ghetto neighborhoods, is, you know, keeping your name clean. And keeping your name clean has keeping my name clean and maintaining my brand standard has opened up a world of windows for me. Um, Maintaining, you know, skipping out on certain get rich quick schemes, hustles, things of that sort. You know, I remember when everyone was on all of these plays in the past, the EIDLs and all these different things that were going on and all that stuff. You know, I always knew that I was on a trajectory to make millions, and I see the news articles. I see the news, the media, you know, video clips of people being arrested for doing wire fraud and bank fraud and things of that sort. And I look at that and I cringed because what if that was me? First and foremost, my franchise agreements are null and void. All of my life savings that I put into these franchises, there are clauses in those agreements that will have them snatch those away from you. They will put them in arbitration, unwind you out the deal. If you got a dime back, cool. Other than that, we got you out and we got someone else in to come and operate. So I faced that first and foremost. Two, I knew that I was always going to take it past being on the front line, making sandwiches in my Subway. I knew that I wanted to get to a bird's eye view and encompass the total franchise lane versus just one aspect as a franchisee. And with that, you're dealing with, you know, you're dealing with corporate bigwigs. You're dealing with people that expect you to carry yourself in a certain demeanor and act accordingly as you're representing these massive global brands. You know, I definitely was able to play a lot and explore a lot with the Subway brand, and that was still a Fortune 500 brand. But now I'm with the Fortune 50 brand. You know, we're not playing those games, man. You know, we're conducting ourselves. You know, the logo I'm wearing matters. You know, that logo being worn as I say a racial slur, as I say, you know, something offensive to a woman, can now take my personal brand and spiral it out of control and down into the trash can. So I'm very mindful of that. I aim to carry myself in a manner that represents who I'm representing, because who I'm representing is what brings in, you know, the moolah to feed my family and to, you know, create the wealth vehicles that I plan on creating. So yes, I would say that, you know, it does, you know, your personal brand, your name, everything about you, what people say about you is very important. Honestly, even when you're doing your application for certain franchisors, they really want your social media handles. They really want, you know, referrals. They want to speak with your wife. For example, Subway wanted to speak with my wife. You know,
Yeah.
they wanted to get to know a lot more about me, and this had to be genuine. You know, let my wife, maybe not my wife because she's gonna have my back through thick and through thin, but let them go through my social media pages and see that, you know, I said some stuff back then. You see this all the time happening. There's a scandal coming up and someone pulls up a tweet from 20 years ago and it has a massive effect on that person's brand. You
Right.
know, that we're susceptible to that when dealing with the franchise. Now, for my potential clients and the people that are getting into this game that maybe won't care to build a personal brand, their name still matters though. When that franchisor is looking up little Susie that doesn't have a social account, things of that sort, they still want to make sure that, you know, all Google searches are clear. background clear, things of that sort. So conducting yourself accordingly, is going to be is going to be what you rely on down the line as you enter into certain brands and as you plan on growing your fleet within them.
Yeah, because I look at it kind of like an anchor, right? It's kind of like what really truly holds you down. So
Definitely.
I appreciate that. But tell me, we have like 3 minutes left, and I just want to share this with you. Most recently, I launched this whole initiative and this challenge to make reading cool, right?
Yeah,
and I created this book club called the Majorvation Book Club. First off, on camera, I want to invite you to that group. It's a free group, a free channel on my Instagram.
Sounds
But
good.
the
Definitely.
reason why I did that is because I want to share information that I'm learning and growing, and I also want others to share as well. I think it's just such a great resource, and it just adds to our thinking ability, our problem solving, um, you know, perspective, like everything. And so I want to invite you to that as well. But is there a particular book or something that you've read that kind of stands out that you could share with the audience before we get out of here?
Oh, definitely, man. I got a couple right here on my bookshelf. 1 second. I'm gonna go with Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. I still got my note pages in there. Who Not How. This goes back to what we were saying about the delegation and passing on processes to the experts of those lanes. I had to learn that. I had to pass over my HR to HR experts. While I'm an expert in my lane, I'm okay with accepting that. I also have to be okay with accepting I'm not an expert in that lane. So it's not about who, it's about how it can get done. So Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. Very key. I actually got this recommendation personally from my brother Nipsey Hussle, Ermias. He put me onto this when he first came to my first Subway location. He saw the operations. It was like, yo, bro, you need to hop in on this, especially as you build a brand. This has been ultimately key. And then The Elite Entrepreneur by Ephraim Taylor. 7 strategies to really tackle to get your mindset right. To be that elite entrepreneur. These are my 2 go-to books right here. I would recommend to anybody looking to grow a business. Once you get into franchising, it's time to expand. Tap into these books and they'll get you right as far as delegating and getting your mindset there.
Man, that's
and
fantastic.
I'm definitely joining the book club, man. Come on.
Let's go, man. Yeah. Well, listen, this has been another episode of the Majorvation Podcast where we talk about all things inspirational, aspirational, and motivational. Raphael is the franchise guy, so make sure to follow him. All of his links will be in the show notes. Make sure to ask him questions, leave comments. But brother, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to staying in touch. And if there's anything I can do for you, feel free to reach out to me as well. But let's definitely stay connected, my brother.
Of course, man. Hey, thank you again, Major. Best of luck to you and your platform. And thanks for having me once again, man. Looking forward to it.
Hey, man. Talk to you in a bit.